Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality back with you here today to go over some entertainment news for once instead of all the bad crap happening in the world. And this just came out recently, so I figured I'd go over it, especially since the man in the picture here and who the article's first two words are in the headline is probably my all-time favorite Hollywood director, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but Steven Spielberg slams woke edits to Hollywood classics, including his own. So let's see what the man himself had to say. And it starts off by him saying, "I never should have done that" to E.T., the extraterrestrial. Oscar-winning movie director Steven Spielberg told the Time 100 Summit earlier this week. He was referring to politically correct digital edits he made for the movie's 20th anniversary re-release. I remember when that was being done, and it was just kind of like, and here's a still from the picture, where the FBI agents have guns, and they were changed to walkie-talkies. No, it's not another picture of him with the walkie-talkies down there, but... let's keep going on with this. As in one of the original edit's most chilling moments, kids are seen making their escape with E.T. on bicycles, and there's E.T. right there. It says, pursued by armed federal agents with an interest in the alien creature. Back in 2002, Spielberg used digital effects to replace agents' pistols and rifles with harmless and silly-looking walkie-talkies. A scene of genuine drama was turned into a mood-destroying giggle in order to please modern sensibilities. I remember that people were like, oh my god, people are going to be offended that FBI agents have guns that are trying to, like they didn't know what E.T. could do. They were basically defending themselves. So, of course, they're going to have guns. So, it says that's a move Spielberg now regrets, and more recent home video releases have the original scenes restored. Oh, I didn't know that. That's good. He said no film should be revised based on the lenses that we now are either voluntarily or being forced to peer through, Spielberg explained. He says, for me, it's sacrosanct. It's our history. It's our cultural heritage. I do not believe in censorship in that way, he said, according to the Daily Mail write-up of the conference. But here's where I'm going to take a small issue with one of my favorite directors. This is what the writer saying, not me. It says West Side Story and Ready Player One accepted, of course. So I should never have messed with the archives of my own work, and I don't recommend anyone do that. All our movies are kind of a signpost of where we were when we made them, what the world was like and what the world was receiving when we got those stories out there. So I really regret having that out there. Okay, that's good. At least he's apologizing for it, because it wasn't a good idea. I still think of the South Park episode they had on it. It was been a long time since I've seen that, where they made fun of this fad, and it was spot on, as South Park tends to be in their satire, but... let's keep going with the article. So sometimes the director feels he didn't quite get it right on the first edit. A perfect example is one of my favorite movies, Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. The troubled production of that film is worth a movie all its own. In fact, it was. And Coppola ended up having to leave a lot of precious footage on the cutting room floor. Coppola tried to rectify that with his 2001 re-edit, Apocalypse Now Redo, which I have seen and I own. It says, but with a runtime of 3 hours and 16 minutes, 44 minutes longer than the original, it was just too long. The added and lengthened scenes added much for the diehard fans like me, but in the end, Redux dragged. Is it redo or redux? Spelled redux, but I don't know if it should be redo, but I'll just say redux because that's what it's spelled like. It's like saying that meat that you eat is bologna instead of bologna, but whatever. It says the third time must be the charm, though. Coppola tried again in 2019 with Apocalypse Now Final Cut. I didn't know that existed. And added a comparatively trim 3 hours. He found the right balance between restored footage and pacing. This, at long last, was the Apocalypse Now audiences should have been treated to in 1979. But there was never any memory holing. If you preferred the original edit to the final cut, or even Redux, you can still watch them. Best of all, Coppola personally oversaw the 4K remastering of all 3 films into a single 2019 release. Oh, that's good. So it's a delight for fans who want to witness the progression and evolution of the director's vision. I mean, I'm not that much of a fan of the movie where I need to see all 3 versions of it. But sure, that's cool that it's out there, of course. It says, that's unlike some other directors I could mention. This is cough, George Lucas cough. Says no one will ever watch the classic Star Wars trilogy again, and that sucks. I think my parents might have it still on VHS in their home, so that's probably the only way we could see it is if we, and I do actually have a VCR, so I could still watch the original Star Wars trilogy. Oh, lucky me. It says Lucas destroyed the original edits during the creation of the Greedo Shoot's first so-called special editions. Lucas was never a good editor, as his 1997 redos prove. It was his first wife, Marcia, who saved 1977 Star Wars from ignominy with the fast-paced edit that established Han Solo as the perfect rogue. The only way to watch the original is if you have a low-quality VHS version stashed somewhere in the basement, and somewhere, like I just said. And no, the VHS tapes are, I'm pretty sure they're upstairs in my parents' house, and I have, like I said, I have a VCR, so I can just do that here. And I have it actually plugged in. It's an old combination DVD slash VCR, but I don't use it. I actually have like a Blu-ray player, and that's what I actually use. But the other thing still works, so I could use it and watch those. In fact, I kind of feel like I should go next time I go to their house, check and see if they have those, and then actually watch them. But it's going to be like a half K instead of like Blu-ray or 4K or something. It says, article continues, George should never have been allowed to butcher and memory hold the originals, correct, but they were his films, that's correct too, even if the finished product was in vital ways the work of others like Marcia. Spielberg himself released 2 other further edits of his 1977 classic, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I, honest to God, didn't know that. So the 1979 special edition wasn't all that special, actually, showing Roy Neary, who was Richard Dreyfuss in one of his best and most difficult roles, wandering around the interior of the alien spacecraft at the end, solely the mystery and wonder of Spielberg's first edit. I would agree. If I saw that from that movie, I'd think the same thing. You know, like... Yeah, I don't like that. I don't need to see that. But like Coppola, Spielberg nailed it on the third try with the 1998 director's cut. I don't know if I've seen the 98 director's cut. I didn't know there was a one before that 1979 special edition. I have seen the original. Maybe I will check the director's cut out. Who knows? It says, again, unlike what Lucas did to Star Wars, all 3 of Spielberg's cuts are available for purchase in a single Blu-ray release. No history has been erased. You know what? Maybe that's the one I have. Yeah, I tend to buy the Blu-rays for movies and put them on the shelf and just like, I own it. I don't really look at it. I might actually have that one. I'm going to have to do that after I'm done recording here. I'm going to go check that out. But there's a vital distinction I haven't mentioned yet. So sometimes when a director goes back and to revisit and recut a movie, it's to correct defects that might have bothered them for years. That's fine. And speaking as a viewer, it's an education in movie making, being allowed to compare the original to something closer to the director's vision. But altering a movie's meaning to please modern sensibilities, like Spielberg did with the Federal Agents in E.T.'s 2002 release, that's nothing but digital vandalism, a trashing of our culture. It says, it makes my heart light shine to read that Spielberg has come down firmly on the side of free expression, and perhaps with someone of his stature doing so, more writers and directors will follow. That would be great if that happened. And like, I understand that, like, you know, to a degree, like, these guys are making movies and it's like, okay, the original thing wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, so I want to go back and retool it, like with the examples here, like Apocalypse Now and Close Encounters. But if you're going back and changing an old movie just because it might offend someone today, I mean, there's no end to when that's going to stop. You're not going to have any actual movies left. I mean, this is straight out of 1984 type stuff. And that's horrible to do. And especially like George Lucas, like getting rid of the old version. So it's like, well, you're effed. You can't ever see the original versions in all their glory, unless you got a VCR somewhere, for those of us lucky enough to actually have that. But also with Spielberg, though, I'm surprised what he didn't mention in here is what he did for his West Side Story remake, which is one of 2 movies, The Fabelmans being the other one of his that I have not actually seen. And I don't really have much of a desire to see either one of them. And I definitely don't have a desire to see West Side Story because, A, it's a musical. I'm not a fan of musicals at all. For some reason, I just cannot suspend my disbelief when people break out into dance. It's weird because I'm a big fan of science fiction and horror movies, and I can totally suspend my disbelief for that. But for musicals, just somehow can't do it. Don't know what that is. But it's because of that, and also because whenever the Hispanic characters are speaking Spanish in the movie, he didn't use subtitles, which means basically people who don't speak Spanish can't understand what's happening. And I know you may have seen the original and been like, well, you know, if you've seen it enough times, you're like, I get the gist. But still, when you're watching a movie, you don't want there to be no subtitles or people speaking in a different language, even if it is a remake of a movie, of a beloved movie that you probably have seen. Because again, you're not going to be able to follow anything and you can't get into it. So he probably should have commented on that. I don't recall seeing any sort of comments from him about that, but that was definitely not a good idea. Okay, if there's someone speaking a language other than what the primary language is of the audience that's going to be viewing it, you probably should have subtitles. Okay, this movie's made in Hollywood, so it's made for America first, and that means we speak English here. And if someone's speaking a different language in the movie, especially if it's a prominent part or prominent parts in the case of West Side Story, you should probably have subtitles so people know what the hell is going on. But I thought I'd add that at the end. So what do you guys think about Steven Spielberg's comments? Do you agree with him? Do you not agree? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.